Welcome to Two Angry Men, the newest podcast with Los Angeles Magazine's own Mark Geragos and TMZ's Harvey Levin, where the two get together and talk about the biggest legal stories of the day. Enjoy.
Would you call Tenny and see if we can just talk to her by phone?
She's in the next room.
Well, would you walk in for 2 minutes? How do you feel?
I feel great.
I'm just wondering, why did you put a gag order on your dad? Welcome to the Two Angry Men podcast. Mark, I talk to you all the time, but I feel like I haven't talked to you in 3 months because of this gag order. I don't even know where to start with you. I know you were deeply involved in the defense of Diddy, and your daughter was one of the lead lawyers. So tell me what the reaction is on that team to this verdict, and then I just want you to tell me everything.
Harvey, it does as much as last week I was Tenny's little bitch. I proudly embraced that today. I couldn't be prouder. I mean, I sat with Sean and we both shed some tears about our daughters and the fact that he's got his life back. And she and Mark Agnifilo and Nicole Westmoreland and Xavier Donaldson and the unbelievable Alexandra Shapiro, Jason Driscoll, and Anna Seja, and Easton Stelly. I mean, I could go on and on. Xavier Donaldson and Brian Steele. I mean, what a team. What a team, and meshed together. And I will tell you that Sean is, I've known him for 20 years, obviously, as you know, and through thick and through thin, and he's in a very, very good place, and thankful for the jury system. You know, we talk a lot about the jury system or fascism and democracy and things like that. I will tell you, there was a funny line during the hearing I just got out of within the last hour. And Mark Agnifilo was making a pitch for an expedited sentencing hearing and talking about, and we'll talk about this in a second, but he was saying something, and Maureen Comey, who was the prosecutor, got up and she was doing what Maureen Comey does best, which was scolding. And Mark, without missing a beat, Agnifilo said, after listening to Miss Comey, thank God there are juries. And I had to stifle a chuckle. Otherwise, the marshals would have thrown me out of on my head.
So what you just said something really interesting to me. So Diddy, look, he won the main charges. I mean, this was a case not really about the Mann Act. It was really about, sex trafficking and racketeering, and Diddy won and won big on that. But he still faces significant prison time. And the judge today, by denying him bail and talking about his violent nature and history, may have telegraphed that he's in some trouble. So where is his head? Is he Is he viewing it as a victory?
It's Harvey. There's no way to spin this as anything but not only a resounding victory, but it's a slam, what's the term for a slap down, an absolute resounding rebuke of the prosecution.
Oh, as Trump would say, obliterated.
Yeah, they did get obliterated. Mind you, the Mann Act and Agnifilo went through this in court. I mean, this is one of the reasons you almost wish there were cameras in the courtroom, but Agnifilo went through. I can't think of a person who the Mann Act has been applied to who is hiring the prostitutes. The Mann Act has and mind you, it was originally the White Slavery Act. And you want to go back in the history, over 100 years ago, it was used against the first black heavyweight champion, and then famously against
Chuck
Berry.
Berry.
Charlie Chaplin in between, but he was acquitted, the one white guy. But, there were a lot of people who said that was because he was prosecuted because of his political views. But Chuck Berry, and the Mann Act was designed for, the whole idea of it was for, I mean, there's a great history of it. If you do it, it was designed for when women were coming of age and they were going from rural to urban areas, and they didn't want people transporting them, and it was always used against people of color, famously. And the I mean, think back. Agnifilo reminded me. I forget what it was called. I think it was called the Emperor's Club last time in the Southern District. And they, you know, who they declined to prosecute for the Mann Act when they prosecuted the Emperor's Club?
Elliot Spitzer.
Exactly, the then sitting governor. Mind you, in New York and LA, where the so-called hotel nights or Wild King nights were,
Yeah.
if you're a purchaser of or patronizing a prostitute, you don't get prosecuted.
But he was convicted, Mark. But he was convicted.
I understand, Harvey.
So what I'm really asking is,
don't channel your inner prosecutor. There's no way to spin this other than
he won.
Resounding victory for Diddy.
But what I'm asking you about is, he's sitting in a jail cell right now, and the judge denied him bail. And he could listen. He's not going to get life, and we know that was on the line.
Oh, and by the way, the government, they filed a letter. What's the government going to ask for? They're going to ask for 50 to 60 months or something like that. The sentencing guidelines, frankly, are 20 to 27. He was acquitted. The judge denied bail, but the judge specifically said, "Look, I have to, because they're alleging it's a crime of violence." And the defense, basically conceded the violence and said that this is a domestic violence case, except he's not being charged with domestic violence. He had a standard. The judge adhered to the standard. That doesn't mean that at sentencing, he's not going to do the right thing. I think, he's somebody who sat and watched this case. I will tell you that have you played the Doug Wigdor, Cassie's lawyer's statements?
Yeah.
I mean, it's mind-boggling, the take on this case that he has. I will just tell you, the family was there, Sean was there, and everybody is breathing a collective sigh of relief.
So what do you think he'll get? You sound like you're thinking like 3-4 years.
No, I think if there's any justice, he'll get 21 months time served, something like that. Even if you were to get 36, he's eligible for all kinds of other stuff. He's not going to do much more time.
So you think he'll get out? You think he'll get out within a year?
Oh yeah, he should. I think he'll be out within a year, 18 months at the most. I think there's a distinct possibility that he gets sentenced to something akin to time served. I mean, look, he went to New York. He flew to New York knowing he was being investigated, knowing they had executed those crazy Homeland Security raids. He was there. He surrendered himself. Mind you, I think the prosecution's offer in this case was some crazy 27-year offer or something insane. And they spectacularly lost, and they overreached, and thank God for the jury. The jury saw right through it.
So what was the calculation for the defense in just resting, not calling any witnesses?
It was clear, I think, to most observers in the courtroom, the government hadn't made their case. The government, I'll tell you what I always say, and I was muzzled at the time and couldn't say it. When the government started investigating jurors, you know what that means. That's a telltale sign. They don't like what they're seeing.
Yeah. What about this juror? When juror number 25 came out, when the jury came out and said an hour into deliberation that juror number 25 was not following instructions, it sounded to me like 11 of them were unified already an hour in. Is that the way you saw it?
No, that isn't. But can we talk about now? Can we talk about how
Anything you want, Mark.
Okay, okay.
All ears.
Let's talk about Harvey's theory, and then Harvey, I'm going to tell you something that I experienced firsthand here. Okay,
Please.
Your theory. Do you have a theory?
No, talk to you. I just want to hear from you, Mark.
Oh, okay. Harvey had a theory that there was that a juror may have been offended by the bedroom police. I took this theory a little farther. The kind of presentation, the prosecutorial presentation, was so out of sync with New York City, to my mind, so out of sync to LA, that this idea that if you have consensual sex in a hotel, and then, mind you, the jury goes out and they're not sequestered, right? And I spent this past Sunday was the Pride Parade. And when was the last time you were in New York for the Pride Parade?
I don't think I've been there in June for a long time.
I'm going to tell you, I was out in it because I was walking from the office to where I'm sitting. Took me about, which mind you is maybe a mile and a half. It took me about 4.5, 5 hours. And
wait a minute, to walk a mile?
Yeah, a mile and a half, because
what's wrong
everything
with you?
is barricaded. Well, yeah, because I'm old. No, because there's barricades everywhere. The police won't get you by. You can't cross Fifth. I mean, there's a million things. But anyway, it was fascinating. It's fascinating to just see the teeming masses of humanity. And all I could think of was, as I'm walking around New York City on the Sunday after the jury has spent 6 to 8 weeks, and the kinds of pearl clutching that was presented to this jury, just to me was so out of touch with where we are in 2025 that I had a pretty strong feeling that the jury was going to do the right thing, and they did. I just think the prosecution's presentation was tone deaf.
So, and I, believe me, you and I have talked about that. And, what really struck me, Mark, was when the U.S. attorney held a news conference, a minute after filing charges, and then, would talk about baby oil. And it just felt like, what does that have to do with anything? And it kind of set a tone for the whole case. And I think this baby oil destroyed him. I'm wondering what you think.
By the way, in the streets outside of the courthouse.
Oh, we saw. Yeah.
Did you play that?
Oh, please. Where they were squirting baby oil all over the place? Absolutely. I mean, it became
by the way,
yeah.
In the opening and the closing, Tenny's opening was brilliant. And it was serious and it was heartfelt, and you could tell she knew the case inside out. But she did get a laugh. The one laugh she got was when she kind of in a offhanded way said, and we all know his affection or affliction for baby oil. And then in the closing, Agnifilo brilliantly talked about, and they have the Homeland Security and they're here to protect the homeland, and they do the massive raids and they come in there, and what did they find? Astroglide and baby oil. Now we feel safe from terrorist attacks. And
well, it does. He got laughs. But it does lead to something that I've been obsessed with, which is racketeering. Racketeering.
Yeah.
To me, this was not organized crime. It was disorganized crime. And, he's this crazed, jealous boyfriend and doing all sorts of things. But there were certain things that seemed to, that the jury could have latched onto if they wanted to strictly follow the instructions to find these two predicate acts. I mean, there was extortion, because we know that with the letter, the $20,000 demand Diddy made to his mother, to Cassie's mother. And, there were, we don't have to get into it, but there were enough that they could have chosen to, but they didn't.
Well, remember,
but they didn't.
Remember, though, the beauty of a trial, and also kind of the the downside or the underbelly of a trial is you win or lose in jury selection. You and I have talked about
Right.
that for going on 40 years.
Right.
If you, and I've said this, and I say this to young lawyers, I say you're not, you can be the greatest lawyer in the world. You can know your case inside out. You can do whatever. If you've got a jury, even over 8 weeks, you're not going to change their worldview over 8 weeks. You're not going to take somebody who views the world in one way, and they're not going to just say, oh, for the last 30, 40 years, I've been wrong about my viewpoint on this world, and now I'm going to change it. That doesn't happen. You have to, to some degree, it's jury deselection. You get rid of people who have an agenda or who are stealth, and you look for people who will be open. And that goes full circle to the Pride Sunday. It's I think some of the best of what is New York, just kind of a carnival Mardi Gras-like atmosphere where people are not uptight, where people are out there kind of expressing themselves, and it's fun and it's wild and it's kind of celebratory. And the idea of trying to lecture or scold or clutch pearls in a city, a cosmopolitan city, one of the great cities in the world like New York, to me is just, go back to it, tone deaf.
What was Diddy's reaction to Cassie when she testified?
I think that there was equivocation. I will never reveal attorney-client, but I will tell
Oh,
you
no, you don't have to give me the
that there
communication,
was,
but give me the
but I
attitude.
would say
The attitude.
equivocation in this sense. Cassie testified, and it was clear, I think, to anybody who was in that courtroom that, and Anna did, by the way, Anna, who did the cross-examination, I thought did a wonderful job of not, by the way, there's another for those who are lawyers, there's always this idea that you have to kind of be a bruiser, or you gotta just beat the hell out of the witness. It's not true. It's one of the great misnomers. She had a conversation. They talked like they were almost like gal pals. And you could tell it came through that she was in love very deeply with Sean. And I think Sean has always said how much he loved her. And by the way, it was not after the fact, because one of the beauties of what they did is there were real-time texts, there were real-time expressions of love, there were real-time Cassie down for the freak-offs.
But she recast that relationship on the stand. How did he react to that?
Well, I think he understood, like everybody else, that there were 30 million, 20 million reasons for that. She didn't call the police. She called a civil lawyer. So what more do you need to know? I mean, nobody here, by the way, there wasn't a single person here who went and called the police. I mean, these people weren't calling the police. In fact, these people were basically dragged into the criminal courtroom. And that's always, I think, a suspect. I mean, you shouldn't have to, the old expression, you don't find me the man and then I'll find you the crime, or you don't kind of, that's what Doug Wigdor was crowing today, that Cassie's civil lawsuit was the blueprint for the criminal prosecution. Well, yes, I would agree with that. I don't dispute that. Doug is right. His civil lawsuit was the blueprint, and that blueprint, the house they built on that blueprint fell apart today.
You do know you just made a confession unwittingly, right?
Which was my confession?
Your confession was when you were just kind of offhandedly saying, when I asked about Diddy's reaction to Cassie, you said, well, I could never reveal attorney-client privilege or communications. So yes, you were an attorney for Diddy in this case.
I'm on the record. No, I'm on the record with, I have represented Sean off and on for well over a decade. I'm on the record currently on 2 civil cases, and I have an attorney-client relationship that's never, I mean, it's never been where I've been terminated or anything else.
You
I mean,
were
Sean
actively
would say,
involved in this case.
I was a helicopter parent. That's what I
You
will
weren't
say.
just a parent. You were in the courtroom. You were not.
I was, you
You
know
you,
what I
you
thought
even
of?
said to me your daughter didn't need your help, so you were
Yeah.
there for a purpose.
So I will tell you this and what I thought of, especially when I heard the verdicts. Yeah, I go so far back with you that early in your career, we talked about this, I think, on our first episode. Early in your career, you were on the People's Court, and the judge on the People's Court was Judge Joe Wapner,
Right.
who, by the way, spoke at my wedding some 30 some odd years ago. I knew you back then because my father was then before Judge Wapner did the People's Court, he was Joe Wapner's calendar deputy, DA,
Right.
in the LA Superior Court. I mean, that's how far back we go. Now, you also know that my dad was a prosecutor for 13 years and then was my partner for about 20 years. And I would yell at you frequently over cases and part of our history. But I was just thinking, he hasn't been around for 10 years. And I was just thinking, he would be amazed that his granddaughter was on this stage performing at this level while also you revealed that while 5 months pregnant. I mean, it was quite a feeling.
By the way, you revealed that on this podcast.
Yeah, but I was because we were talking like two old friends, and sometimes I forget we're recording.
Hey, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting pressure on you. If you don't want to do it, it's fine. Would you call Tenny and see if we can just talk to her by phone, just get a reaction?
Would I call her?
Yeah, like right now.
She's in the next room, and I'm on childcare duty because they're going to go celebrate.
Well, would she walk in for 2 minutes and just, we'd love to hear from her. She started our podcast. Why don't we button it up? I mean, it would be great to have her just for 2 minutes.
We'll see.
Will she come in?
We'll see. I'm,
it would be great to be able to.
By the way, did I say that I think I mentioned this, that I'm under a DVTRO?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Domestic violence, any restraining order against Levin.
Boy, did she have an iron fist in this, I'll tell you. I mean, I could not call Mark for weeks. He wouldn't take my call. And it was tough. It was tough doing this podcast. Tenny has a lot of control, that's for sure.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. She's a force of nature.
Were you guys confident going into deliberations? Because a lot of people, I'll say myself included, misread some of what was going on. Were you confident? Because he didn't look confident in the courtroom.
I think look, Sean has been famously through this back with you and I talked about this. Johnny Cochran and Ben Brockman tried his case, 25 years ago, right? And so that's a you can get you can be going through a criminal case. I'm going to tell you, is one of the most nerve-wracking things. I often tell clients, at least when there's a sudden death in the family, you get closure. You can have a funeral, you can have a wake, you can have you do some kind of ritual that gives you closure. You never really get closure in a criminal case. I mean, it's a very odd kind of human situation to be involved in, even if you are vindicated. I mean, and he's clearly been vindicated. He's not a racketeer. He's not a sex trafficker. Yes. Did he use prostitutes? Yes. But
more than that. I mean, Mark Agnifilo had to say to the jury, look, this Cassie video is beyond horrendous. So in the public's eye, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt you won this case, but there is collateral damage from everything that came out that is going to make it difficult for him to reemerge into anywhere near the position he was in before.
I disagree. I think he'll come back better than ever. I really do.
Talk about that.
I talked to him. Like I said, I've known him. I think I know him fairly well. I've spent, I can't tell you how much time with him, even during this, as kind of friend, confidant, counselor, and I I've just been impressed with how seriously he's taken this, how much thought. I mean, I've often said about clients that these kinds of timeouts that you get, if you use them wisely, it's a wonderful opportunity. I mean, it's not something anybody would ever want to go through. Obviously, nobody welcomes it. I think I can only think of two clients I've ever had. Be interesting if you can name them, who willingly went to jail, and both of them were in contempts. And they would refuse to testify in front of a grand jury. Other than
Susan
that,
McDougal.
Susan McDougal was one. Greg Anderson during the Barry Bonds case was the other. And both of them said no. And it was mostly about the prosecutors. It wasn't loyalty, even though both of them were cast. Greg's case, it was cast as loyalty to Barry Bonds. Susan, it was cast as loyalty to Bill Clinton. And what people don't understand, I think, to some degree, at least they didn't back then, was both times it was more just revulsion over the way they were being treated by the prosecutors.
So was Diddy confident? Was he confident during the trial? Was he confident during deliberations?
No, I think anybody who says they're confident when you have a jury trial is kidding you. Hold on, come here for 1 second. Come here.
I see
Come
what's
here.
happening.
Come here.
I see what Harvey's
Oh my
doing.
God, Tenny,
No,
Tenny,
it's not
I'm not the evil
He's not
dragon,
going to
Tenny.
ask you anything, but I'm going to
Jeez.
just.
I was gonna congratulate you on being pregnant. I was gonna congratulate
you.
you on winning.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
I feel great.
Was this? Did you expect this? I'm just so curious because.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah,
Well,
she
no,
did.
I'm dying
That's
to
right.
know. I mean, this is all. I mean, Tenny, you just won a big case.
Thank you.
I'm just
Big case.
wondering,
What a big case.
did this feel like this was going to be the result when you went into deliberation, when you decided to
All right.
rest?
I love you all.
This is it?
What's
the
You want me
state's?
to answer that?
Hey,
Because as I saw,
why did
as
you
I
put? Why
saw-
did you put a gag order on your dad? Can you answer that? She won't answer that.
I wish I could tell you the conversation last night. I will. There were two members of the team who were talking, and I can't tell you. I can't tell you my reaction, but I will just tell you I had a pretty good idea yesterday based on the jury note as to where this was headed.
Were you surprised that the judge denied bail?
No, not in the least. I thought when if you watched what was happening and understood how there was a lot of missteps today by the prosecution, not the least of which, and I know they're mortified by it, or I would imagine they are. They came out and at one point the DOJ had put out something saying that they had gotten a conviction on sex trafficking. How embarrassing is that? So.
I didn't see that. They put a press release out?
Yeah, they put a press release out and they said that there was a conviction on counts that he was acquitted on. It was embarrassing. This was not their finest hour, and it hasn't been. And remember, this is the Southern District where Emile Beauvais had to come down here from DC and basically argue himself because the prosecutors and wrote by the way, DOJ in that Eric Adams case had wrote what I thought was a very compelling brief about why this case and the Eric Adams case filed both under the tenure of Damian Williams, who was then bragging about, indicting billionaires and mayors, why that was how should I put it, inappropriate. So it was a prior kind of iteration, not the current U.S. attorney who's here, Jay Clayton, who is a former head of the SEC and by all accounts, and his number two, I think, chief of criminal is somebody that I have the utmost respect for. I mean, when he was in private practice, we were co-counsel in a case, and This is a storied office of the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they don't lose. I mean, that's what they're known for, not losing. So that's yet another kind of feather in the cap for the defense.
Were there any words exchanged between the defense and the prosecution after the verdict?
One of the interesting things, Maureen, Comey, and Tenney, I think, have, from my standpoint, looking on the outside looking in, I think there's great mutual respect there. I think that they both, it's interesting. One of the interesting things about these kind of hard fought trials, and I think trial lawyers will tell you this, a lot of times when you go through these kinds of trials by fire, I know this is the case with me. Some of my closest friends today are people that I opposed in a hard fought case. It's like going to war. It's like two fighters in the ring. And I think that they still got a couple of rounds left, but I think that there is a mutual respect there.
What do you think the prosecution's biggest mistake was?
I just think this was an ill-conceived prosecution. I think that you can't take a civil lawsuit that is designed to shake down money out of somebody and use that as a blueprint for prosecution. That's in my humble opinion. I wasn't there. I don't know. I mean, based on what was said today, it would appear based on the arguments, based on what the facts were developed. And I have often seen in cases, if you don't call the police and your first call is to your lawyer, or if you don't call in a civil case, for instance, where there's injuries, you don't call a doctor, but you call the lawyer, jurors are smart. Jurors are not going to buy into that sense.
I've wanted to talk to you about this for weeks now, and you would not talk to me about it.
I know. By the way, hasn't this been a rather difficult 8 weeks?
Awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, awful. I've got like so many other things, but the one big thing is this, that I really thought the freak off videos, when the jury saw him, there were a lot of people who thought, oh my God, this is terrible for Diddy. I thought this is the best thing for Diddy, because what the jury saw was a 9-month pregnant Cassie on the stand. And then all of a sudden, the prosecution starts showing them these videos where that whole image gets blown up, and you see her in the throes of these sexual escapades. And, it's hard for a jury to look at that and say no consent. I mean, there's testimony, but to me, those videos, that seems to be something that you would have presented right out of the gate, and they did it, and that really stunned me. I don't know.
I that's one, but and who knows? The problem with kind of the Monday morning quarterbacking is you never know, and I also think that even if you talk to jurors and talk about them, and I think the judge cautioned them against talking about deliberations, you never really know what was really important to them before, during, and after, because the worldview after deliberations, you get the give and take of it is such that it's hard to keep track of where you were because you move. Obviously, Friday, they were, I think the words were, Monday, actually.
Monday.
Unpersuadable. I haven't ever seen the words unpersuadable from a hung jury. They deliberate for another 90 minutes and they come to a verdict.
What do you think? What do you think happened there? Because just for people who don't know, the jury was divided. We don't know the division exactly, but it was multiple people on both sides on the racketeering charge. So they came in very quickly this morning. What do you think happened? I mean, this was what? They slept overnight and said, let's do it. Was it because they're up against a 4th of July weekend?
I see that a lot. I see that a lot when it's hung juries. If the judge gives them the standard instruction, they didn't get an Allen charge, as I remember here. An Allen charge.
Correct.
Right, and that's the dynamite charge,
Right.
which is unconstitutional in the state courts in California, and a lot of federal judges won't give it. And they didn't give it in this case, but they just said basically a charge that is, look, there's nothing that's you're a bright jury, you've listened to the evidence, reconsider, don't change your opinion. Gave kind of a watered down, go back and try and do your best. And sometimes sleeping on it is helpful, to
But
your point.
yeah, which is just, it's the weird thing is they came back and they said, we're just dug in. We can't move. We've tried. And then all of a sudden, boom, they do it. It just surprised me it happened that fast.
I think so too, but I was surprised, but you never know.
So what do you
And
think?
Harvey, I've got to go. So
Okay,
you're
but
gonna-
I got one other question.
What
What
is it?
happened with juror 25 when they said an hour into it, he won't follow the instructions? How did you guys read
that
that?
I have no idea. Way above my pay grade. But I love you.
Where are you going
gonna-
to where are you going to celebrate tonight, Mark?
You're going to drop this, so I'm not going to tell you. Bye, Harvey.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
I'll talk to you.